Hello, my name is Rachel from Rad Pilates, and today we're going to be doing a Pilates Based Restorative Movement session using a yoga strap and a yoga block, which are non-traditional Pilates props, but I think can add a lot of support and also a little bit of challenge. So let's start standing without the props, but have them nearby. I'm primarily going to be using a foam yoga block that's softer and a long yoga strap. So at the end of my mat, I have this runway behind me and space to move. I'm gonna work my way down. You could always have a chair in front of you or a gondola pole. So I'm actually gonna grab my block real quick and bring it back up with me. So from here, I'm gonna check in with my stance. Maybe it's parallel, maybe a little bit wider than parallel, and I'm just gonna check in with how I'm feeling and do a little bit of rocking onto my heels and onto my toes, checking in with my knees, my hip hinge throughout my hips, knees, ankle, and then coming back into that upright, just checking in for a moment, maybe rolling the shoulders back. I'm gonna use my yoga block to help me get on and off the ground. So to start, I'm gonna bring my right leg back behind me. So from here, I'm gonna bring my right leg back behind me and I have my toes tucked under. And as I work my way to the floor, I have my knee to the floor, I'm also bringing my yoga block down. From here, I'm gonna bring my lower part of my leg in so I can sit over my leg for a moment. And then from here, I'm gonna come back over myself and I'm pressing my yoga block down, bringing my foot behind me, tucking my toe under, and coming back up, bringing that leg forward. Other leg goes back, I can switch hands with the yoga block, work my way down to the floor, bring this leg underneath myself, and sit. This is the hard part, coming forward. We have all hands on deck here. We can move any way forward, any way around this. Maybe we don't go as far back. Remember, as we move, we're gonna do what works for us. And then coming back up, stepping forward. Let's do another on each side. Stepping back my right, coming down, bring that leg in, sitting over myself, coming back forward, stepping back up. Other legs coming behind me. It's a sort of a curtsy moment, and then coming back up. And from here, I'm gonna come down and stay down. My heart rate is already a little bit up. I'm gonna take my yoga block, I'm gonna put it back here, deciding and kind of guessing where my head is gonna end up, and it's gonna help my head stay in neutral. This might not feel good to you. If it does, use it. If it doesn't, get rid of it. You could also use a pillow, but focus on how you feel over the cues I give. So from here, I'm taking my yoga strap that's in half, I'm bringing it behind my knees, and I'm gonna start working my way down, but only maybe halfway or a quarter of the way, and I'm coming back up. I'm noticing how much energy are in my feet forward as I'm rounding through my back. I like to start and think about this low part of my back, sacrum, pelvis, and this is coming closer, and then letting the upper body do this flexion forward. Maybe 1 to 2 more. If you're leaning back and you're like, this doesn't feel that great to my back, you can always come down to the side and lower down like this before coming onto your back, and then turn back onto your side to come up. Know that there are options. Do what works for you. And then if you'd like to, we can start going down, opening up from that bicep, opening up that arm, lowering down, and then, oh, I guess pretty well. So I'm readjusting the foam roller, and you notice that I can breathe. It's not tucked anywhere. There's lots of space here. That's also the case here, but having a little bit more lift, I have less of a distance to go. It's a little bit more propped up. It just helps. I like a little elevation here and there. So I can decide if I want my arms fully extended or if I want them bent, and then take an inhale, exhale, lift the head, start reaching. Have your legs reach away from you as your head comes up. And then taking a breath at the top, decide if you want to turn to your side to come down or if you want to come down the way you just came. And this time I'm bringing my knees in, and then I'm going to let my legs move away as I come up. So inhaling, lifting the head, pressing into the back of the rib cage, and then my legs are starting to go forward until I can get my feet a little bit more towards the ground, and then I'm gonna come up. Play around with that. Lowering, sliding the legs in, deciding what that range looks like for you, and then coming back up, and then lowering back down. And remember, we can stay at the top. We don't have to do this. We want to do what works for us in the moment. From here, we can readjust the strap to underneath our arches and taking a moment here, breathing in this space. What is this like? Maybe we can lift the legs up. Maybe we can flex the toes back towards us where the heels are lifting up. Take another breath here. See what that feels like. And then from here, we're going to bend the knees out to the side. The heels are together, the toes are away, and then we're gonna press out and away. It's our frogging moment, bringing our legs wide. It's like doing a wide squat, but we don't have the pressure of the floor. We're not doing it in a closed chain that way, but we still got a closed chain because we have our yoga strap. So from here, pulling that in one more time, taking a breath in here, deciding what would be the best thing for your next move. Decide if you want to bring your legs more towards the ground and slide and come up, and then sliding, coming back down. Maybe you want to keep the legs in the air and do more of a teaser. But if you do a teaser, I recommend bending the knees once you come in, and then re-lengthening out again once you come down. Because we can start kind of dropping here, which is fun, but just decide what you want to do, because you can always bend the knees, and you'll notice the relationship with the bent knees changes the relationship with the back and the pelvis. And then last one, and come down. Once you're down, have the strap just on the left leg, and then from here, we're gonna lower the leg across the body for a moment. So the right leg's going to the left and breathing, and then we're gonna bring that leg across the other side over to the right. And then we're gonna bring it one more time over to the opposite side. So the left is going towards the right, and I'm bringing my hip over if that feels okay. So my hips are stacked, part of my shoulder is still down. I'm in this T-spine stretch, and then I'm gonna bring my hip back down. If that felt all right and you wanna do it again, do it again. Do what works for you. I like to look away from where my knee is, so my knee is going over to the right, and then I'm looking left. And then lifting that leg back up, I'm gonna bring my other leg up to bring my other leg down. And then to start, I'm gonna bring this right leg across towards my left, and then I'm gonna bring this right leg towards my right, and then back up and over into my T-spine stretch. Taking a breath here, unwinding, decide if you want to do that again, come back into that T-spine stretch, maybe look away, decide what works for you, unwind from there. And then we're going to decide if we want to add the strap to this or not. I'm gonna slide the strap underneath me and bring the strap behind the mid part of my rib cage, like where my ribs and my scapula kind of resting together. And then from here, I'm reaching my arms out and away. You very well might have way longer arms than me because I'm extremely short. If that's the case, make this just one long strap instead of it being folded. So the arms are lifting up. We're gonna take a breath. From here, we're gonna bring the arms overhead. So I already have to do that. I need to separate my straps. It's not long enough for me to do that. I thought, oh, maybe because I'm short, but then it was like, no. So a reminder, we can always move things around to better suit our environment. Next thing, there's a little metal thing at the end of this. I'm gonna put that in my hand because I don't wanna get hit with it. And then I'm letting my arms stretch out. You'll notice they'll come in and out of the tautness, in and out of the band resistance, which is very minimal. And then bring the arms back up. You might want to readjust so they're as taut as they can be, and then bring them back overhead. Notice what that range feels like. Here, I wanted to actually get rid of my block, and then arms are coming up, and then back in line with my head, and then back in line with my head again. Notice, do you feel a relationship with the shoulders, with the back, and with the front of the ribs? What is that like? And then from here, I'm just gonna re-engage my arms up, my strap. Inhale, exhale, and I'm lifting up, lowering. Remember, everything's an option. We don't need to do this. We can also put the block, wherever I put it, back so there's less, so there's a little bit higher elevation and less range. Sometimes it's good to check in with that comfortable range, and remember, less is more. From here, we're gonna let go of that strap. You could always come up in a teaser or roll up. I'm gonna come up to my side and come up more of in a mermaid stretch. So from here, I'm going to keep my yoga block where it is, and I'm gonna move my strap for now. I'm gonna have my arm on this in a forearm. So I like to have my forearm on, but there isn't enough room always. So I can stack them side to side like this and have more base for my arm, or I can focus on primary of the mid to the elbow on. So it could be like that, but if you have two, use two. So from here, I'm checking in, I'm finding this diagonal. At first, I'm gonna do side bends. So I'm letting my side arc downward, and then I'm lifting back up, and I'm gonna go through that center, which is the neutral-ish, and round and arc this way. So I'm gonna arc both ways. It's gonna be harder to arc up because of gravity and the way we're positioned. And then I'm checking in with this. So when I'm over this way, my shoulder's above my elbow, but when I'm this way, do you see how it's a little bit off range? So I'm gonna figure out where that range is for me and what feels comfortable. And then next thing, I'm going to leave my bottom leg bent. You could always stretch it out. Decide if you'd like to do that. If you have them long, have a little bit of a hip hinge and have the legs on a slight diagonal forward. Otherwise, you can always bend the bottom leg and the top leg. From here, we're going to hover and reach out with the top leg, flex that foot, kick forward, point back. Kick forward, point back. I like to have my hand in this dome shape to help me kind of stabilize, but it's up to you. You could always have your hand behind your head or on your hip. Do what works for you. From here, let's bring that leg out into a hover. Let's lift in a point and flex lower. Point, lift, flex lower, point, lift, flex lower. From here, we're gonna go into tapping. So tapping, it doesn't need to be all the way at the floor. You could bring it over to the side and do a pulse in the other way. Just doing a couple here, and then the leg reaches out going into the circles, and then go the other way in the circles. Wonderful. And then the leg comes back in. From this bent leg position, let's reach the legs out and reach the legs in. I have a really slippery mat, so if you have a mat with more traction that is trying to impede movement, then you're not going to be able to do that, right? So remember that the different props and environment can change kind of how we're working with ourselves. So if something doesn't work the same, remember that we might be working in a different environment. So from here, which we likely are because this is pre-recorded, which is awesome. So from here, let's decide if we want to have the knees bent and then lift up the hips, lower the hips. And again, I'm trying to get more of my hand pressed down so I'm not just in that elbow. And then lift, lower, lift, lower, maybe last two. Decide if you want to extend the legs and lift up. It's up to you. Do what works for you. From here, arm lifts up. Let's round that arm underneath. Look over the shoulder and then reach back up. And again, threading that arm underneath and looking back behind you, and then back up. Last one, reach and back up. From here, we're gonna lower down in front of us, and I'm only gonna use one of the yoga blocks. So I have my hands pressed on the side, and it's the side of my foot that is down. And then I also have my forearms down. From here, I'm gonna lower down. There might not be a lot of space. If you have larger breasts, this might be less comfortable. If you have any sort of acid reflux or any kind of digestive things, this might not be appropriate and might not feel good. So know that you could always prop up some pillows or forward through this next thing. You don't have to do it. It's about honoring how you feel, not pushing through. So from here, we have the block up in front of us. Decide if you want your head slightly lifted or not, but think about your head as an extension of your spine. From here, hover the arms up, lower down. Inhale, exhale, hover up, lower. From here, check in with the low back sacrum area. So I like to sometimes go into internal rotation from the upper leg bone. So it's all the way into my femur, into my pelvis, internal rotation all the way down. So my feet are pointed inward too. From there might be a little bit more space here. Maybe parallel feels better, maybe external. I find that I have more space here if I'm in an internal or some version of that, but maybe I want more activity, so I would be in a different shape. So play around with the legs. All I'm reminding you is that repositioning and adjusting can have a different experience. Inhale, exhale, lift your arms up. From here, bend at the elbow, bringing that foam block behind you or whatever block you have. Remember, props are optional. You don't need to use a prop. Arms go out, back in. You can do any of this without a prop. And then coming back, maybe two more, and lower down. Take a couple rounds of breath. Inhaling, expanding wherever you can add air. From here, we're gonna slide the elbows underneath us for a moment. Decide if this works for you. I need a lot of padding in order to be in this shape for it to feel good. I'm gonna hover my knees and my feet a little bit and just see what that's like, and then I'm gonna lower. I have a press of this block. I'm gonna lift, lower, two more, lift, lower. From here, I'm gonna reach back out. I'm gonna hover my arms. I'm gonna hover my legs and then bring my arms into that bent position and extend. Bent and extend, bend and extend. From here, lower down, take a couple rounds of breath. I'm sliding the foam roller and my arms back into that Sphinx-ish position, checking out what this is like. I can add on if I want to. I can press to the top of the block and lift up into a little bit of swan, and then come back down, reach. Bring that back in, lift into a swan, and reach. Maybe one to two more, and then push back into a child's pose. Wiggling the butt. Maybe it's more of a puppy pose and you're lifted instead of staying pressed back. Create space for yourself and focus on expanding rather than contracting and staying into a small shape. Expand, breathe. From here, you don't need the block, remember, but if you'd like to, I'm gonna take the block and bring it between my feet. Whew. It's like the sides of my feet, ankle. And from here, I'm going to hover my knees again. I have my hands down and they're a little bit wider shape. So instead of my Sphinx, I'm gonna wrap my shoulders down a little bit, my elbows and forearms, and I have a press of my hands. So I have more of this diamond shape in front of me. And then from here, I'm hovering my knees up. I'm gonna extend my legs, point, flex, so keep the knees hovered, press the heels towards the butt for 3 pulses, and then I'm gonna extend out. And again, 3, and then extend. Remember, those are arbitrary numbers, so do what works for you. Hover those knees. They're gonna wanna lower, mine already did, but remember, it's up to you. You don't need to keep them up. Last set, if you wanna do it. And then lower down. Decide what kind of a rest pose or mobilizing pose works for you. And then from here, we are going to roll over to the other side. So you could face away or you could face towards me. So I'm going to reset up for my second side of my side lying work for my forearm. So I'm on the other side. My legs are stacked. They could either be a little bit forward or I could have that bottom leg bent. And then I have my shoulder above this and I'm trying to redistribute weight across my full forearm. From here, I'm gonna hover my top leg. I'm kicking and point. And again, I'm using this dome hand to help me balance. You don't need to, it could be here or here. Going for just a few of each. And then coming back, let's do a point lift, flex lower, point lift, flex lower, point lift, flex lower. From here, we're gonna tap each side. Remember, we don't have to force the leg all the way to the ground. Do the range that works for you. This is about exploring and figuring out your preferences and your comfortable range of motion. And then going into your circles. And then other way. And then coming back down. From here, we're gonna lift the hips and lower. And lift the hips and lower. And again, do one or two more if you'd like. You could always stretch the legs and lift up. And then from here, decide if you want to do another set. And bend the knees, arms lift up, round the arm, threading it through, looking behind you, lifting back up. Bring your gaze with your hand. And then back up. And then the last one, underneath you and back up. Wonderful. From here, let's come back down. I'm gonna have my yoga block and I'm gonna decide how I wanna come down. If I wanna do a roll down, and I could always put the block at my knees this way. Or I could put it between my ankles this way, or not at all, remember that. And so I'm gonna put this here, I'm gonna come down in a way that works for me. And I personally like to have my heels closer to my butt as opposed to having them further away. It just feels a lot more stable and comfortable. Decide that range for you. Widen out those toes, let's press down all four corners of those feet. And then I like to press more into my shoulder girdle, or my shoulders and my upper shoulders and upper ribs meet, and less pressure on the back of my head. I'm also putting a lot of work into my triceps, forearms, and then from here, inhaling, I'm pressing down that shoulder girdle in the arms and the feet and lifting up, and then rounding and coming back down. And lifting. I like to think about my knees driving out and away, and then coming back down, letting myself fully relax for a moment before getting back up, using my breath. Maybe it's an exhale to lift and an inhale to lower. Maybe it's a different breath. Do the breath pattern that works for you. Play around with it. From here, if you'd like to, stay in that bridge. If you'd like to try this, kick one foot forward, flex, bring it down. Other side, point, flex, bring that down. Alternating sides with the point and flex. You could always stay on one side and do a few. And then make sure to do the other side if you want to. Remember, it's always optional. And then take your time coming back down. From here, I am gonna move the block closer to my feet and I'm gonna stretch my legs out. You could always leave your legs bent and reach for the back of your thighs to come up, or reach the arms out to the side and work to get your arms underneath you to press yourself up, or turn to your side and press yourself up. So there's lots of options here with different ways to get up. You could also stretch your legs out, reach your arms overhead, and start lifting up and then lowering down. And you can always start lifting up, get those arms underneath you and start pressing up. Once we're up, we're going to stay up here for a moment and we're gonna decide if we'd like to, I'm like double checking that I didn't forget anything. We're gonna go into our all fours cat-cow for a moment, but I'm gonna use the blocks to help me get into more of a forearm position. So we could always be here, but we can always be here as well. And then from this point, I'm actually widening my knees just a little bit and bringing my feet inward. And I'm gonna rock my hips side to side. And then from here, I'm gonna round my head, round my back, round my hips, unwinding my hips, unwinding my back, unwinding my head. And then I'm gonna start from my low hips, winding up, rounding my head, and then unwinding. Taking maybe 2 or 3 more. Decide what works for me. And then I'm coming back up. So today we focus more on restorative movements and using some blocks, doing pre-Pilates work and also Pilates mat work. And I hope you enjoyed that session. Let me know in the comments and subscribe. And yeah, let's do some more movement in the future. I hope you have a really good day. Bye.